of the station. Jay and Janine are expressing their own opinions, and such is not a substitute for psychological or mental health advice. If you are experiencing an emergency, please hang up and call 911.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Momentum Mindset Show, where we're talking everything personal development, coaching, health, and the law. I'm your host, Jay, here with co-host Janine.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Please join us on Facebook, where we can be found at the Momentum Mindset Show. And if you want to call in and be part of the show, we would love to hear from you. It's 888-565-1470. And if being on live radio is not your thing, no problem. Send us your comments and we will interact with you on Facebook.
Let's create some momentum. And welcome to the Momentum Mindset Show, Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock. I'm your host, Jay Farrow.
And I am your co-host, Janine Davis.
Welcome.
Welcome, everybody.
And how is everybody's week? I mean, it's been it's been another one of those weeks.
Yes, it has, ladies and gentlemen. We are, if nothing else, consistent. So they say slow and steady wins the race. I guess we're going to win some heck of a prize because we are slow and steady. That is for sure.
I think we're just going to go ahead and jump right in to what we wanted to talk about today, and that really was up in the air until a couple of seconds ago.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I got to say it was a little tenuous here at Studio A.
When you spend as much time as you do, as Janine and I do, and then at the same time add the pressure cooker of creating a brand new business, or at least reinventing one, you're inevitably going to run into how do you say? I don't know. You say, Jay. I have my own thing I'd like to say. You go first.
Well, so Jay and I are close, and we're kind of like siblings. And much like siblings at times, we want to, I don't know, take sharp objects and hurt each other. But no, I mean, listen, you do spend a lot of time together, and your wires get crossed sometimes, and, people get moods.
Saying this, and this is for, again, our audience, about people that are out there doing their thing, going through business, starting a business, transforming one. I mean, this is part of it. The part of it is the relationship part of the business. Part of it is the people that you work with, and then you also not just work with. And in this instance, you sweat with them, you bleed with them, you cry with them.
Oh yeah.
And then the starting of the business is one thing. The ups and downs are another. And then when you have the expectations like we've had in the last couple of weeks, and then the things they don't end up turning out the way that you think, it's like, it's very easy to, number one, get down on yourself, and then number two, consider them a loss. But then there's another way to look at things. And I keep going back to every single morning I have breakfast, and I have this little sign in front of me that says, "See the good." Yeah.
It's a powerful, powerful visual to start your day.
All right. So if I was to say this, and I wanted to talk about other than the law firm, we have been working on the Momentum Project, the Momentum Mindset Project. And over the last couple of weeks, we've devoted some time to creating this 3-day event that is all about an awakening into the world of transformation.
Yes. Basically kind of, giving people the idea that there's more to life. And if you were not aware that maybe there's more, there's more. And there are different ways to look at it, and different ways to perceive your very existence and your very interaction in your own place in the world. And it's really sort of exciting to be the space really for people to start becoming familiar with this idea that there's a possibility out there that you may not have considered for your life. And really that's what we're about. We're about creating the idea of possibilities. And in fact, we are certainly flexing the muscle of that ourselves, because you cannot be an entrepreneur. You cannot be, and we're late blooming entrepreneurs in many ways, although you've been an entrepreneur for 10 years or for 11 years, but you had your formula. So it's just now that you're reinventing yourself again for the second time. And I come from a corporate background. I had worked for entrepreneurs myself, but being one, like when you're responsible, we talked about this, the decision fatigue, all the different things that are, it's a next level experience, and it's a beautiful possibility.
Now, in transformation, the reason why I bring up the program that we're developing is that there are something called distinctions. And it's not just creating awakening for people, but also providing the information that you need to keep the transformational toolbox.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of those fundamental distinctions is the difference between a fact and an interpretation.
Yes, this is actually a beautiful one to start with.
Yeah, I thought so. Someone just saying that.
So, as an example.
Well, okay, so as an example.
I have an example.
Go ahead. What's your example?
So, on our way up here, we discussed what we're going to talk about. And Jay was in deep thought and was not participating. So I could have interpreted that as, oh my gosh, here's my radio partner and he's not talking to me right when we need to decide the thing. And I could have made a whole story about it, right? I could have interpreted your actions and made all kinds of things up in my mind about it, and then, subsequently reacted to it. And I didn't. Because before, I now know that I'm an interpretation machine, and that was a neutral event that had nothing to do with me, and that I'm making up what it means. That's interpretation. So the fact is that there was a silence. What that silence meant, I got to create. I got to make it up. Why?
I love how you started with the example of my silence in the car and creating stories about that.
I created some pretty good stories at first.
All right, let me take a step back and let me clear some energy, and let's get into this. I think it's important. We can start with this, and we can talk about something in a second.
Hi guys.
Hello from the snowy cold, Kimmy.
Yeah, Kimmy I
saw in Alberta.
Lynn,
Close to Edmonton.
Okay.
So she's still going through
winter. Wow.
And hi, Kim. Happy birthday, by the way, Kim.
Happy birthday, Kim.
And we're seeing you, and she says she's going to watch us.
And I saw Lynn pop in at the corner of my eye, so thank you, Lynn, for staying tuned.
I'm glad to know that that Facebook is going.
Yeah, I'm not having a chance to look it up, but. Thank you so much. But let's clear some energy, whatever. But my point is, it is an example, and especially it's really important because when you're in relationship with people, whether it's a work relationship or a whatever relationship, we interpret pregnant pauses, we interpret silences, we interpret all kinds of different things, and we can make up a whole story about it. And it has nothing to do with the truth. So this is why I'm saying, like, the event was silence. It's neutral.
But there's more to that.
No, of course there's more to that. I was using it as an example in general, how there are all kinds of different things that you could charge an event with. And that is where the fact and the interpretation come in.
Okay. So let's go. Let's see what the facts were. Do we want to use me in the car as an example to go through this?
Why not? We talk about being authentic and real.
So here's the story. We're driving up to Delray today, and
which, by the way, this is my favorite studio. I'm always very pleased to come to Delray.
Yes, I second that. We're driving up to Delray, and we were talking about debriefing some of the stuff that happened at the office today, some of the clients that we needed to contact on the way, some things we needed to handle, and then something then I went silent.
Yeah.
Because you asked me a question, and I went silent.
Right.
Okay. So those are the facts. Now, what are the stories that you can make up about that? I'm curious. Like, what? Because
No, because we have a strict no swearing policy on the radio. So I can't express myself openly about it. Well, okay, the first story was, oh my God, what did I say wrong? And to me, I'm like, for me, I'm still in work mode. So I'm like, no matter what it is, let's go. Let's keep on pushing through it. So the story I made up about it was that you didn't want to still play work mode with me. And then I just, I went about doing my own work. I responded to a whole bunch of emails and made the time really productive instead of taking it really personally and stewing on it and making it worse.
And the story that you made up about it originally was like that I did something wrong?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I must have said something wrong.
And where would you think, where would something like that come from? Like what?
Well, my childhood.
Okay.
And experiences when I was young, either like in the actual family home or like with friends or something. Because sometimes we all stick our foot in our mouth. And we learn from that, and then we learn to be like, the repercussions can be harsh, especially when you're young, and our minds, our bodies have a memory. And certain events can trigger that very, very old memory, and it's the same sensation as when you first experienced it as a kid.
So the way that you're, so what I hear you saying is that things that happen in your past,
yes,
reflect upon how you interpret the present events,
100%,
and therefore how you react to them.
Correct.
Awesome. So then there's a possibility then that you could choose a different interpretation.
100%. So that's exactly what I did, because I know that is a thing. So I pay attention. I honor what I feel in the moment. And then I make a different choice. So, for example, I chose like, okay, Jay needs silence right now. We'll discuss what we need to discuss when it's good for both of us. So I took my phone, responded to a million emails, text chatted with friends, did things that I needed to take care of and handled it and moved on. And by myself thought of things that we could talk about.
Now, this week has been full of possible times that we can interpret certain events.
Yes.
Okay, and in the business that we have, you have certain metrics that you can interpret.
Yes.
And that'd be your cash flow. You have the new clients that might have come in.
Correct.
You have the wins, the losses, if they even can be considered wins and losses.
Yeah.
There's a certain thing that happened on Thursday where we had mediation. And the way that this thing was set up was, we had attempted a pre-suit mediation.
Correct.
And we attempted to enroll the other side into not spending $100,000 or $200,000 on litigation.
Right.
And some of the things that came out of that, though, as I looked at it, was yes, we didn't settle at mediation. However, what ended up happening was we were able to take a look at what the other side had to say, and then now process that and now use that going forward in our future to be able to settle the case.
Right. Well, and very interestingly that you bring that up, because we saw in that silence is golden many times, actually, in our society, the way we have it. Silence is something to be, it's awkward, it's a weapon, it's all kinds of different things. But sometimes being silent allows you to really pay attention. And the other side in this case was not silent, and they betrayed a lot of silly things that they otherwise shouldn't have necessarily. Like, they basically said, here's your arsenal, there you go.
And that's the thing.
And it's really interesting the way people do that.
And one of the books that
they're uncomfortable with silence.
One of the book of the week, I would say, is Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
How to Negotiate Like Your Life Depends on It by Chris Voss.
Yes.
Chris Voss is a former FBI negotiator. And one of the things that he suggests in this book, well, actually, he isn't just suggested, is that he went up against, in a competition, these Harvard scholars the top of the top negotiators in the country that went by a certain book method, an academic method of how to enroll the other side into basically getting what you want.
Yes.
And when he went and up against these Harvard scholars, what he did was he implemented the 25 years of experience that he used at the FBI
Right.
in hostage negotiations and
Yes.
applied it to business.
Yep.
And the thing that he discusses is what's called emotional intelligence.
Right. So it's a really interesting thing, the way how he presents it, because, here you have all of these geniuses, in essence, because they're intellectual geniuses, with a guy from the FBI. They think they have the upper hand. The guy from the FBI thinks they have the upper hand because of where he is in the hallowed halls of Harvard. And it turns out that little thing about emotional intelligence, which is huge, it's really basically everything. It trumps intellect every single time, is a secret sauce. And it's something that in business, people have not wanted to employ because...
You're talking about emotional intelligence?
I'm talking about emotions, period. So emotional intelligence is already way too far down the line. People don't want to deal with emotions at work,
Right,
especially in corporate America.
And that's really what we're making the show about is
Yeah.
how do we take what we're going through at this particular moment, because
Right,
this is exactly
our own
what happens.
emotions, yeah.
And what we promised in this show is that we're always going to speak from where we're at and
Yes.
what we're going through and how we learn from what we were going through and how
Yes.
it's not an excuse to quit. It's not an excuse to stay in your stuff for too long, because it does happen.
Yeah, it
I mean, a
does.
few minutes ago, I didn't feel like doing anything, and now it's
I know.
but you get through that conversation in your head,
Right.
and then you move forward, and that's what we're going to talk about on the other side, is how to use this emotional intelligence to do that, to keep moving forward.
Stay with us after the break. We'd love to also hear anything that you all want to, if you have anything to add, we'd love to hear
That would
it.
be 888-565-1470.
Yes, thank you.
Farrow Law Firm, standing up to corporate bullies, using innovative, aggressive, and effective strategies to resolve disputes effectively and timely. Contact us at 954-252-9818, online at farrowlawfirm.com, and on Facebook at Farrow Law Firm. We look forward to being of service to you.
You've been listening to the Momentum Mindset Show.
With Jay and Janine, give us a call at 888-565-1470. And now back to the show.
And welcome back to the Momentum Mindset Show. And we're very, very excited because we have now switched our commercial to start talking about exactly what we do. And we're talking about aggressively pursuing private disputes against corporate bullies, and really talk about all the bullies that are out there. And I'm so happy to hear that was shifted, because we for a while were doing one thing, and it just shows you the progression of our business and what we're up to.
Right. And also, I think that sometimes if anything, we hope that it also shows you that even though you're in a formula, even though you're working your business, it's important that when you feel something so strongly to shift an area of practice or to shift something, you can absolutely do it. It's not your business for no reason. And fulfillment at work is something that didn't exist over 100 years ago necessarily, en masse. But today it's something that we have access to. And it's really important that, people feel free to express themselves in that way too. And I think that all of you know I'm not a lawyer, but I'm extremely passionate about the kind of law that we're practicing at Farrow Law today. It stands for what I believe in as a human being, and really standing up to people and interrupting patterns in practice of abusive tactics in business.
And really what it is that when I started going through my cases over the summer and got a few of cases in where I can take a look at the landscape, and you can see a clear, let's say, breach of contract, and you can see a little bit of fraud on the other side. But what ends up happening, though, even in a breach of contract, 9 times out of 10 when you have a breach of contract claim, there's a reason why the other party didn't comply with the contract. Now, I'm not talking about like breach of contract against Publix or something along those lines.
Right.
I'm not talking about like I'm talking about contracts between two companies that are usually small, closely held, and people with a lot of money, people that invest money into one company, and the other party doesn't perform or takes advantage of the fact that the other party doesn't complain that they're not getting paid. And if you look at this and you look at the landscape, you can just see one thing. If you're only focused on like on the regular legal contract, breach of contract, maybe there's a claim for some negligence or something like that.
Yeah.
But what I started to see, the bigger picture, is that when people operate in a certain way, what it looks like underneath with the people working together, it looks more like civil racketeering.
Yes.
And civil conspiracy.
Yes.
And when you start looking at how people send out emails, and they send out false information through emails, and they send false information through the mail, each time that happens, it becomes a federal offense.
Well, and it's so interesting because people do not realize what they're doing, especially because they feel so entitled to do it anyway to begin with. And then they don't they don't see themselves as participating in those kind of activities, but that's exactly what they're doing.
And on your point, because this is all going to tie together here in a second,
right,
is that when you don't know, when you're operating a certain way, no matter how you're operating, and if it becomes normal and it becomes comfortable, whether it's legal or not, you become not just comfortable with it, but it becomes your pattern and practice.
Yes.
Period. End of story. And if it's illegal, and someone comes up and says, "Hey, what you're doing is what you did here violated a federal law, a criminal federal law, which provides for a civil remedy." People, like, the first thing they tell me is, "Go fry ice." We're still, what I get in circumstance is that they point the finger at me, the lawyer.
Yes.
They point the finger at me. And you want to talk about like emotional intelligence. What we do is when we find these claims and when we present them to the other side, I don't file a lawsuit initially. I never do.
No.
I attempt to give the other side an opportunity to resolve the case before I go into litigation.
Correct.
And this is the whole concept. The whole thing underneath what I do, believe it or not, is to support lawyers' health. Because lawyers are literally dying through the litigation practice, or the practice of law and litigating cases every single day. When I say they're dying, they're working 80 hours a week. When I was a young associate, I was working 80 hours a week because my billable hour requirement was like 45 hours.
Right.
Or more. And
Right.
depending on the thing, and if you're the young associate there for the first 5 years you're in a law firm, I mean, you're burning it at both ends.
Yeah, of course.
And for me, it nearly took me out. I mean, I allowed it to take me out. So I don't want to engage in litigation unless that's like an absolute last resort.
Right.
But people have an operating system, and like we have a business that's growing, and we are running through the policies and procedures that are going to be enacted and used on a daily basis to make it a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
Now, some people have been running businesses for 30 years. This is the company that we went up with the mediation with almost 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And this mom and pop built a $1 billion business.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're used to operating one particular way.
Right.
And when
they've become very powerful bullies.
Yeah, and when you get to a certain level, you think that however you built that was not only correct, but how dare anybody say otherwise? And then you start to take certain liberties with things but then again, it doesn't make you a bad person.
Not at all. It's just, if no one's ever checked you,
right?
And you've been getting away with it for so long, it's easy to trick yourself into thinking that there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
And people misunderstand and underestimate how easily, as human beings, we compartmentalize our behaviors. So it's not so unusual to see a really good person at some times engage in something that is really questionable because they have managed to compartmentalize that particular behavior and sort of just kind of forgive themselves for it or not even acknowledge it or trick themselves into thinking that it's okay.
So when they get a letter from me and they get a complaint, and yes, I'm quote unquote throwing the book at them.
Yeah.
The first thing I'm going to get is, whoa, wait, no, my man, I'm taking you down. And when they point the finger at me,
yeah, they're not talking about the client,
the lawyer. And I wrote about this the other night on Facebook, and I want to mention it here because it's like, because you brought it up before the show and you wanted to talk about it anyway. is this. There are so many claims, so many voices that are silenced.
Yes.
Because when I go up against a $1 billion company, and I'm a solo practitioner, I have a small law firm, the first thing that these lawyers do with, I call them white shoe law firms, the very, very large law firms, is they look to take the lawyer out. They look to take me out off the case.
Right.
And I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Okay, but they don't know that.
Right, because so many lawyers in the same, and again, no judgment to them, and not even necessarily to glorify you. It's just what you. But when a lawyer is their license is threatened, their livelihood obviously is threatened, their pocket is threatened. I would say most of them will say, you know what, you're right. We're not, or even if you're not right, I can't be bothered to take it down the tracks of where this might go.
Right.
It's scary.
So when I say this, I guess we're kind of covering a lot of bases today, but I say this, and it's an important thing, is that it's really sad that the first thing out of that when people can have a bunch of money, justice, you get the justice you pay for most of the time. There's not many lawyers that would just say, okay, if you're going to come after me, then bring it on, because I know that you're wrong. Because I know that I'm standing. I've done my research. I've done my homework. I said, I think in the last show that we do a lot of research. We've hired ex-CIA, ex-FBI, federal prosecutors to do and work with us on our teams. I mean, I'd say proverbial, I know what you had for breakfast, and pretty much I could tell you that. I mean, I found out something about this person that I had in a mediation yesterday that would just blow their mind. I mean, and it blew my mind to get that little nugget of information. Sure,
because you never know who you're talking to 10 years ago.
You want to call it a jewel?
Yeah, you could call it a jewel all day long. Right.
So this is what we do. We stand with clients to stand up for against the bullies in their life.
Right.
And I say stand with them and give them a hand up, because also it's to enroll them and to be able to do the thing that I found the most challenging, is then that's confrontation.
Absolutely.
And we started as part of this. Part of what we're doing here is that now we're learning. Like when I say that the concept here is to promote lawyers' health, that I do pre-suit work so that way we don't end up filing a lawsuit.
Correct.
Okay. This is revolutionary, because if I ever had a legacy to leave, is to wean lawyers off the addiction of the billable hour.
Yep.
Because the billable hour is exactly what costs more lawyers their lives.
We have a question here. How about insulin price gouging? Oh gosh, that's a great question. And
when you talk about like corporate bullies, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because if I'm looking at that, it's not just price. Price gouging is the thing where you look and that's what the horse can see. What I'm seeing is that there's people behind the price gouging.
Yep.
Okay, and when there's people behind those people have a name. And those people also are participated in this with other corporations that they own.
Absolutely, and they're in cahoots together.
Believe it or not, the rabbit hole goes down far. When I'm researching this, a lot of the dirty money goes into some kid's college fund.
Yep.
It goes even to charities. It goes into it goes down the tracks, and each one of those individuals becomes a defendant in the case for a potential fraudulent transfer. So these cases that were involved are huge.
Yeah.
But the concept is to get my client in and out and on with life.
Right.
Because we're
that is our biggest slogan, really.
Right, get in and out with on with life.
Yeah, and it's true. And circling back to emotional intelligence is, where can we see and facilitate the highest good for both parties?
Right.
By recognizing that you've got, someone who feels gypped or slighted or whatever, or stolen from, ripped off, et cetera, and then someone who is there to defend themselves. And where then is the common ground that we can come to an agreement and everybody can move on with their lives? Because that's really the point, right?
No, see, on the other side of this, I'm glad you brought that up. On the other side of this is our client who no matter how thin you slice it, there's a story for each side.
Absolutely.
So that's why litigation is not going to support what they're up to either, understanding that the other side might not have known that they're doing anything necessarily wrong, even though they're violating federal law. So we were in negotiations.
Correct.
So one of our clients supported us and pointed us into a book that's written by this FBI
agent. Former negotiator.
And what he's saying is that adding this thought of emotional intelligence, and really what he's talking about is connection.
Yes.
He's talking about tactical empathy. Mm-hmm. How to identify what is the feeling underneath the reactive emotion. When you see anger, what's underneath that? Because if you can connect to that, then you can get a hostage back in a hostage situation.
Yeah.
Or you can purchase a car, or you can enroll somebody in our scenario into understanding, what our side of the street is at.
Absolutely.
I think that we need.
We need to take another break.
I think we need to take a break. I just want to get the phone number out one more time. It's 888-565-1470. And we'll be right back.
Join us again.
Farrow Law Firm, standing up to corporate bullies, using innovative, aggressive, and effective strategies to resolve disputes effectively and timely. Contact us at 954-252-9818, online at farrowlawfirm.com, and on Facebook at Farrow Law Firm. We look forward to being of service to you.
You've been listening to the Momentum Mindset Show.
With Jay and Janine, give us a call at 888-565-1470. And now back to the show. Hindu, she could be Muslim.
And we're back. The Momentum Mindset Show.
Hi.
And I have to I have to share.
Speaking of emotional intelligence,
it's so much
Freddie,
fun. It's
our
so
producer,
much fun to hang out with Dawn and Freddie on a Friday afternoon.
They're so awesome.
And we said thank you. I think last week, and we just really appreciate all the support that we get from them.
Hi, it's Jim Davis.
And
we still have part 1 with him.
Hey.
If you have any questions, let us know.
But what's coming up for me is that we're actually talking about what we're doing in the law and as it pertains to transformation. And
right.
We've not really done that with this show. We were thinking of at one point to just have this to be the Momentum Mindset Show for purposes of our Momentum program, and as entrepreneurs, we're going to start taking advantage of the airtime that we have because we get to sell ourselves. And that's one of the things that we've been not really paying attention to for a very long time. I'll give you an example. This last week, I sent out a 3-sentence, post on Facebook to an attorneys group.
Yep.
The first time out of the box, I got a phone call from another lawyer asking me how would I look at a case differently? How would I look at a breach of contract case in the context of civil racketeering? And I explained to him, what you should be looking for. Here are the elements, and here's the things that you can find. And
right.
He was like, well, wait a second, I might have a bunch of these cases for you. And so I'm going to go meet with him. Interestingly enough, the first phone call that I made last summer, the first that we had an internet marketing campaign that we designed ourselves. The first phone call to that one lawyer down in Miami, Hollywood, I should say, generated another client that's been with us for 8 months and has some of the largest. Some of the largest cases we've ever done. I'm just going to say this out loud because I need to say it. If things would have gone the way that they should have and will in this one particular case 2 weeks ago, we'd be sitting here with $1 million. Or more.
Yeah, so I think
just wanted to put that out there because it feels good to say.
I know, and you know what? It's so funny. It's like and I think to myself, how can you be hurt by something you never had to begin with? And I have to say, I'm hurt. I'm hurt, and now Freddie's telling me I have squinty eyes when I look at the TV. So now I'm like, not only am I hurt, I'm now squinty. But yeah, it is. It's an odd feeling. Yeah.
It's an odd feeling, and I'm going back to this. We do get to start talking about what we do, and in the context of our cases is a bunch of topics that deal with transformation.
Oh my gosh, it's so interrelated.
I
It's
sat
really
across
incredible.
the mediation table the other day, and this guy literally has like $200 million. Like he has that. And we're having a conversation about a few $1 million that he happened to rip off from my client.
Right.
And this guy just couldn't get it into his head that oh my God, I might have done something that's going to affect my company. Because here's the thing that we don't think about. It's not just our actions. It's not just what we have done. It's the ripple effect of what we do.
Right. To everybody
going out.
Yes.
Because when I file a lawsuit and your wife's involved or your child's involved because you have been giving them money and it's dirty money, that's going to have an effect. Mm-hmm. When you file a lawsuit nowadays, everything's on someone's permanent record. It's like, because everything's public. It's all there.
Yeah.
From there you have the time, the effort, the attorney's fees. You have all of these things that are external to who's right and wrong.
Right.
And so all of our cases invite the conversation of how much does it cost to be right?
Yes. This is a great point. This is one of the most costly addictions that we have as human beings. I love how you call that
an addiction because it's so an addiction.
The addiction to being right is one of the most detrimental, destructive addictions that exists, aside from being squinty. But I kid you not, it's true because I've said this to you many times. I am divorced and I was right in my divorce, according to me. And guess what? I'm still divorced. I still lost a husband. I still, my marriage was irretrievably broken. So I learned back then, this is already many years ago, that there's no real joy in being right, except for like in the moment. But then you can't go to bed with right. Right doesn't keep you warm at night.
Did you say you can't go to bed with right?
No, you can't. It's just yeah. Well, it's more fun to go to bed with wrong. I wouldn't know anything about that. But yeah, it's.
I gotta say, I've never gone to bed with wrong, but I've never woken up with right. No. There's something in there about that.
Wait, is this a country song? Something's happening here. But it's really true, and I think that what we see time and time again, that people will throw money at being right because they cannot tolerate the idea that they're not right. And they don't care what side of the law they're on. That's how addicting it is. That's how irrational it becomes.
Do you know what the worst pain I've ever experienced is?
What?
It's knowing that I've dug myself so deep that I actually couldn't recover some of of my own nonsense. When something is my fault, like I own it, but someone's telling me, "Hey Jay, if you quit now,
quit while you're ahead.
If you quit right now, you're gonna, this is this is what you're gonna need to handle, but that's pretty much it." And I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Then about 6 months down, going online, and I'm doing the same exact thing, and then something else hits me, and it's harder. And it's like, Jay, if you quit right now, you won't have to experience all this, but you do have to go through all this. And I'm like, no, I haven't gotten enough.
To the nth degree.
I haven't had enough.
Yeah.
And I think about that when I'm looking at these two, and that's been a couple of these mediations.
It's 2 for 2.
2 for 2. And in one instance, it's the lawyer on the other side that's like the obstacle.
Yeah, I have to say,
Because let me just before you do.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you are talking to me about the law, you have already lost your case. And it's not because I'm a smart lawyer. Hear that. If you're talking to me about the law, you've already lost your case because you're focused on the wrong issue.
Right.
Because there's no right and wrong in the law. It's all gray. And that's something that a judge is going to decide 3 years from now. But in 3 years, you're going to have the ripple effect of you being right. And those consequences cost time, they cost money, they cost reputations, they cost businesses their breath.
sleepless nights, the cost to your own
You
health,
have-
your own
oh my-
well-being.
You talk about a sleepless night. You talk about those sleepless nights that we go through, like, oh, we have to handle this financial thing. But we're able-bodied. We don't have anything coming after us except we need to handle our circumstances.
obligations, right.
We're not faced with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, but not just that, but if your whole company finds out about it. That's the thing. When I'm looking at somebody and I'm enrolling them in the conversation, if you're looking at the law, you're
Right.
looking at the wrong thing. The law is only invites the conversation that something happened here that wasn't right. Now, whoever is right and wrong at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at that point. Because I have never seen in the years I've been in business and the years I've been a lawyer that the judge ever goes, you win, and that was enough for my client. There's never been enough justice for my client. So how are you going to say that at the end of the day that if you're right and wrong that that's going to make a difference?
Right.
Okay, so when I'm talking about the cost of being right, and our concept is transformational.
Yes.
Is that what if you were to take a look at now, take those rose-colored glasses, those limiting glasses off, and then looking at this from the broader context. And what we're finding right now, and what we're doing in our business right now, is a lot of industrial espionage. What we're learning how people operate in the
Yes.
context of a civil lawsuit or the
Right.
threat of one.
Right.
And we're giving
and
them
how
the
they
op-
operate in negotiations.
Because I am practicing tactical empathy by not filing a lawsuit against you, like right personal. Because
Right.
filing a federal lawsuit, although it be it my right and my client's right, guess what? It's not going to be to the benefit of my client or yours.
Right.
So I got to give you time to figure to let this land, and it's not something that happens right away. And I'm understanding that threats do nothing other than dig someone's heels and claws into something and say,
Yeah.
the threat does go out because it invites the conversation and it breaks the pattern. But from there, you have an opportunity to do something special.
I got a question.
Sure.
Why is it that in Florida they seem to want to settle deals, even though you're in the right, you have to say, okay, we want to break even to keep it out of the system. In other words, they will charge you 3, 4, 5 years of going to litigation. Like I had a friend of mine, an attorney, he says, Freddie, I'm going to save you the $17,000. Just call it a day, cut the baby in half, and move on. But I felt I was right, and I had to sit back and settle. And I felt like something was taken from me in litigation. When you're right, wrong, right? It depends on what side you sit on. But when you're on the right side, why is it that that's the current system of things?
When you say that, I'm listening to that with a lot of passion and a lot of compassion, because many people walk into my office that can't afford any lawyer services, let alone anything, and they've been wronged. There's no question about it.
Right. They're right.
And I've been in the seat of having to explain to somebody that how do I put it in a way? I said, you've stepped in a pile of dog poop. And the question is for you is, how long do you want to wear those tennis shoes? Now, if we want to go down the path of doing X, Y, and Z, yes, you can do X, Y, and Z.
It's poetry, y'all.
But if you can't, but there's a certain point where if you talk about $17,000, I would convince anybody that's going through a $17,000 dispute to just walk away from it, because those 2 years of what you go through, the going to court, going to the deposition, the cost, everything else that happens because of it, it's too small. And so walking around in life, and it is the analogy I use for this particular circumstances, is that we all step in dog poop from time to time. All of us do. It happens. It's there for a reason. I think it's there to teach us something, that it's not going to happen to you every single day, but it is part of life that is going to exist. And it's how you handle that, which you have the choice to take off the shoes or wear them and smell them every single day. And then every time that you're around somebody, you smell like dog poop. And that's just, and I've had the conversation many times in my office. It's just not, and some people want to, and then I'm not your lawyer. I have been their lawyer though. I've gone down the tracks with them, and I've gone down the track so far that I've actually, I've gotten into it. I took on one of the larger banking institutions a couple of years ago, who happened to going after my client in a foreclosure case. And I took it and I took it personal, and we went down the tracks. It cost me $300,000 more because of my personal money, of my business, of my time, and ultimately had to hire another lawyer to defend me in an action because the bank, they filed a lawsuit against me for my litigation in this particular case, and we went at it.
Yep. All in the effort to be right.
All in the effort to be right, because everybody was right. Everybody was.
Right. Well, you brought up the point too about the other attorneys and how they show up. It's very interesting about how a very righteous client will then partner with a very righteous attorney. And it's like,
it's like a magnet.
It's unbelievable.
Like a moth to a flame.
It is a moth to a flame. And then you've got two excessively righteous people trying to resolve something, and they don't even listen. It's not maddening for us because we expect it and we understand it. And it can be extremely maddening even still.
I would say this to all of those people out there that can afford. I'd had the same conversation with them. It's like, because you're going to meet lawyers that are addicted to the billable hour. I want to say that again. It's so important. You're going to meet lawyers that are addicted to the billable hour, that their interests come first.
Right.
When they see your case and it's all juicy and that you have money, it's like a drug dealer seeing a person who wants the drugs. Yeah. It's like, and they will feed you. They'll feed your ego. They'll feed your need to be right, and then
it fuels their own.
And it fuels their own, and all it does is chick.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And this is why attorneys have a bad reputation.
Because they're addicted to the billable hour.
We fight against that all the time. The perceptions of what the law is, the perceptions of what attorneys are, that they're all money hungry, that they're all the billable hour. Is this call going to cost me? Is this email going to cost me? Well, if you go to so-and-so PA, it might. I don't know. Not here, but it might down the street. We don't know. That's not our model.
So what I've done, though, in cases like that is I look to create the maximum amount of pressure, and I call it pain points, and to see if I can get a suit resolved immediately. If you're coming to me with a $17,000 suit, I said don't go through it. I mean, don't go through the whole litigation process. But I'm going to suggest to you that there might be a way to enroll the person into a conversation to get that back without ever having to do that, ever having to file a lawsuit. I've said this 1,000 times. It's so true. If I have your case and we're sitting in court before someone with the black robe, I've lost the case, and so have you. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Aren't you a good lawyer, trial lawyer? I'm like, yeah, I can do my thing in trial. But you've given your power over to somebody to make a decision for you, as opposed to being able to handle the decision for yourself.
Absolutely.
So we are creating a law firm that's creating a context for dispute resolutions that doesn't involve giving your power over, wasting your life and time, and it's not geared towards the billable hour, and it's all based upon the transformational tools that we have been learning for the last couple of years.
Absolutely. And then, you couple it with the fact that you have a non-attorney coach who is also being space for the clients to talk, to express themselves, to communicate openly, to whatever, and not constantly be in fear of not sharing vital information because they are being charged by the minute.
Janine spends more time sometimes with clients than I do, and it's about enrolling them into getting out of their own way. And it's talking to them as a human being. Right. Because and they listen to me as they're listening to a lawyer, but I speak to them as a human being as well. I mean, what we're finding is that we are all still the children on the playground.
Oh my gosh, we have not grown up, everybody.
No, we haven't gone back. And the thing is, the bullies from the playground didn't grow up and say, "Oh, I made some mistakes when I was a kid."
Yeah.
I'm still
better
bullies.
now. No, they're still bullies.
But what I said on Facebook, I'll say it now because bullies weren't born bullies.
Right.
They studied. They practiced what they see. I know, being on the side of taking depositions and understanding what has happened to some people, it's like they got the stuff kicked out of them.
Right.
They got they had the torture, they had the abuse, and you listen and you look at them and you look at their parents or their brother or their sister, and you see what goes on.
Oh, absolutely. Bullies are a product of
systemic
abuse.
So I have compassion, I have empathy, but at the other side of it is that goes as far as also my clients have rights.
Correct.
And so it's an interesting dynamic that we're creating this conversation.
Right.
In the context of law,
Right.
that anybody could use anywhere. And we're using the tools that we're learning from ex-FBI agents, like and this person that wrote
Yeah,
this book,
yeah,
about
absolutely
using emotional
fascinating.
intelligence to be able to solve disputes, to be
Right.
able to understand that relationship and connection is
Right.
really what it's all
Right.
about,
Well,
no matter
and-
what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we want to make the distinction here and be very careful too. Emotional intelligence is not a manipulation. Emotional intelligence is actually a tool to connect and diffuse the situation in order to create viable communication, right? Because it only works if both parties are actually open to listening to each other. And that way, the outcome is actually something that can be satisfying for both.
Right.
Freddie and Don are looking at me. It's
But
really weird.
It's
I'm trying to say something really important. And they're just like,
you know what's funny is that the first thing when we started off these mediations, you know, we're talking across the table before things begin, and we're making, you know, I try to make jokes, you know, to diffuse.
correct.
Because no one listens to me when I'm yelling at them, you know, and I'm not
Right.
listening to you if you're yelling at me, by the way. If we're-
Right. No, I can attest to that. It totally checks out. And it's so unsatisfying. Like, wait, why aren't you freaking out? I'm yelling
This
at
guy,
you. No.
this guy the other day before this mediation, like I tell you, the lawyers point their finger at me and they're like, I'm their smoking gun.
Yeah.
This is their defense. That lawyer, I can't believe what he wrote. I'm like, yeah, I wrote about you, and it's all true. But listen, you can when they come. So I get an email every single time. Jay, I'm going to come after you for sanctions, and I'm going to tear your life apart. And I'm going to okay every single time. And thank you for those. And just
Does not fail.
I don't.
It's very
read
lazy law, I
every
have to
word
say.
that you
Right.
said. But this guy the other day sent me a 40-page email.
Yeah, 40-page.
It's 40
40
page.
page
He spent it was
complaint.
about $25,000 or $30,000 that he charged his client for this 40-page email. It was a nice piece of work. I even told him so in the
You
mediation.
know, I'm not sure he took it the right way. though.
But it was all to try to knock me off the case.
Sure.
Instead
To
of-
silence.
And when I and I
voice.
originally spoke to him, it was very strange. I said, you know what? Thank you for the phone call. Let's get to a mediation before this thing gets to a lawsuit, and let's sit down and see if we can resolve this because we have these claims. And at the first, he was like, you know what? Thank you very much. Nobody does this. Nobody does this. And I said, well, maybe more people should.
Right.
More people should.
But then he felt he had to grandstand an audition for his client, and then that's when the gloves came out. And that's, again, the addiction to being right.
No, it's the addiction to, underneath that is the addiction to the billable hour.
Also.
I don't know if it's the addiction to being right, but perhaps the billable hour. Because if you go to mediation first and you settle this case, you're done.
Right.
You get your fees paid one way or another, and you're done. You don't have 3, 5, 7 years in court of billable hours.
So, and if this guy has this
True.
client that's a multi-millionaire that would fund a lawsuit for 3 years, he now knows that 10% of his practice is paid for, or 15% of his practice is paid for the next 5 years, as long as this goes to court, as opposed to settling. Because if he
Right.
would have settled yesterday, then his total fee would have been the $25,000 to $30,000, as opposed to $250,000.
Right.
So he basically enrolled.
It is.
I saw it. It was disgusting, but I saw it, and yes, I'm going to say it because it's exactly what it was. It's just like he enrolled his client into this type of conversation.
Yep.
So the question is, right, what's better for the client or is it better for the attorney? Are we looking at what's best for the client in the situation? And when we're hiring an
I
attorney,
would say in
what's
that
best for you
situation-
versus
And the situation that we're referring to and what we see consistently is that it's always better for the attorney, not at all better for the
The
client.
attorneys are the one that win on that side that are using that model, and I call it a model because that modality of the billable hour is ridiculous, and here's why. On a computer, I can find out research in 20 minutes that used to take 20 hours. Nowadays, I do electronic filing. I don't need to serve anything. There is no reason on God's green earth that lawsuits still take 2.5 years when all the technology in the world has cut that down by 150%. There's just no.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
just no. There's no excuse for
Well,
it.
it's funny because I didn't come from the law world. And I would always say to Jay, like, I would, from the beginning when we started working together, I said, what is this nonsense about the billable hour? It always bothered me because I thought, well, what's the difference then from like punching in and out of a clock? You know, lawyers think they're so hoity mighty or whatever, but really you're nothing more than a glorified
Right,
paper pusher.
Paper pusher.
And like, what's the difference between you and an auto worker?
But
Nothing.
it's an
Both
operating,
jobs
it's
are
an
very,
operating system that
you know, but it's still, it's kind of
another
like,
operating system.
well, it's a very antiquated and slave driver type of model for working for both people. In other words, like the client is enslaved, and by the way, so is the attorney. It's like an agreement of bondage, and they don't see it that way because this is how they've built their fortune.
But it sounds to me like it's a gimmick. Billable hours becomes the enemy, not so much about being right, wrong, or indifferent.
Well, exactly. This is exactly our point. This is exactly our point, because when this is the driving factor, and again, it's not the attorney's fault, it's the culture. They don't even know how to extricate themselves from the culture.
It was necessary.
They have no
at one
idea.
t-
It was necessary at one point.
When it used to take 20 hours to do all the research and basically go into the library, then it was necessary. Nowadays, it's not. Anyway,
Right.
we want to thank everybody.
We really do.
Because
Thank you.
we're going to be using this platform a bit more to be discussing our cases and how the transformational tools and how we can see ourselves
minutes.
in our clients and see ourselves on the other side. And we just want to.
minutes. We have 2 more
Oh, we
minutes.
had. Oh, see.
Okay. We have 2 minutes to the end, Jill.
Okay, so that's what we want to.
Yeah, well, because it's all very round, right? Again, we want to compartmentalize things, but at the end of the day, we're human beings engaging in human behaviors no matter where we are. At the law firm, in transformation, in relationship, whether it's romantic, work, sibling, family, interacting with strangers. It's all about relationship, and the transformational tools are there to help us in every aspect of our life. And again, you know, supporting people in taking a different view, having the courage to look at things a little bit differently.
Having the courage to
We-
act and open your heart and
yeah, you know,
as
when
well as
we-
your mind.
Yeah, we want to wrap we want to spin the world a little differently.
Interrupt the practice of law.
That's it.
That's exactly what we're
Thank you guys. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Momentum Mindset Show. For your hosts, Jay and Janine, we'll see you here next week. Thank you for being real, authentic, and honest.
If you'd like to reach us, please contact us on our Facebook page, The Momentum Mindset Show, or on our office phone line, which is 954-559-6987.
We are stronger together.
And remember, keep going.